for July 23rd, lesson number 8. Everybody got books and things. The title of it is Zealous for God. Zeal for God motivates Christians to effective service. Kim, you want to start, and then we'll go to Rhonda and Richard, and then Angie and Harlan, okay?
Numbers 25:3. And Israel joined himself unto Baal-peor, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel.
And when
Phineas.
the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand.
And he went after the men of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. So the plague was stayed from the children of Israel.
Phineas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, hath turned my wrath away from the children of Israel, while he was zealous for my sake among them, that I consumed not the children of Israel in my jealousy.
Joshua 22:13. And the children of Israel went into the children of
Gad.
Reuben, and to the children of Gad, and
Oh, I'm sorry.
to the half tribe of
Manasseh,
unto the land of Gilead. Phineas, the son of Eleazar, the priest.
Thus saith the whole congregation of the Lord, what trespass is this that ye have committed against the God of Israel, to turn away this day from following the Lord, in that ye have builded you an altar, that ye might rebel against the Lord. Go ahead, Rhonda.
God forbid that we shall rebel against the Lord and turn this day from following the Lord, to build an altar for burnt offerings, for meat offerings, or for sacrifices, besides the altar of the Lord our God that is before his tabernacle.
And
Phineas.
Phineas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, said unto the children of Reuben, and to the children of Gad, and to the children of Manasseh, this day we perceive that the Lord is among us, because we have not committed this trespass against the Lord. Now ye have delivered the children of Israel out of the hand of the Lord.
Hebrews 3:13. But exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin.
John 2:16. And said unto them that sold doves, take these things hence, make not my Father's house in house of merchandise.
And his disciples remembered that it was written, the zeal of thy house hath eaten me up.
Romans 12:11. Not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord.
Okay, the golden text is be not slothful in business, to what she just got through reading. Fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. Zealous. Tell me what zealous means. In your own words.
Excited and willing to serve the Lord. Whatever you're zealous towards, you're active in it, and you're excited about doing it, and you're energetic, and
Okay.
you're all into it.
Real good. Anybody else have anything to add to it? I looked some of this. I looked it up, and just Harlan got the heart of it. Zealous or zeal. You take zeal by itself. It's eagerness and ardent. And then I come across these definitions, like eagerness. I know what eagerness is. Then they come up with the word ardent. Well, what does ardent mean? So I had an idea, but ardent is characterized by a warmth of feeling, or typically expressed eager, zealous support of an activity. I mean, it's just a warmth in you, and you just want to do it, and you have a desire to do it. And zealous, filled with, or characterized by zeal, marked by fervent partisanship for a person or a cause. Partisanship is firm adherent for a cause, or adherent is stick to, or give support or maintain loyalty. And what I get out of this whole lesson is don't be shallow in serving God. We have, sorry to say, and you can tell by our classroom here, we have a lot of people that go to church that are very shallow in the Lord. I'm not putting them down. It's just that I'm saved, and I'm going to heaven. I'm happy, and that's all that needs to be done. But to me, serving God is a lifestyle. It is not something that you put on Sunday and take off through the week. It is a lifestyle. And the thing of it is, they know and we know, the Bible says, Jesus has told us, he said, I'll never leave you or forsake you. Well, like if Harlan and Angie are married, and you guys too, same difference, but what if you just communicated once a week? Or what would happen if Harlan, if she only cooked maybe one time a day?
I'd cook.
You'd cook your own, wouldn't you? Yeah. Well, you'd have to.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, we as Christians, a lot of people look at serving the Lord as, well, he's way up there and I'm down here. But he is always with us, and he's got guardian angels around us, and he desires to communicate with us and talk to us, and he wants to fellowship with us every time, 24/7. It's not just a Sunday thing. And what? Okay. Another thing that happens. How many of you people have seen people that have been married, which is unreal in today's world? You got problems?
No, some tell me go back home
Oh,
for
okay.
a minute.
Yeah.
Anyway, you see people that have lived together for 40 or 50 years, and it seems like they look alike, and they do things alike, and they talk alike, and sometimes when Richard out here is trying to tell something and he can't think of the words, why Rhonda will come in with the words for him to help him, because she knows what he's talking about, what he's thinking about, and everything. Sure. That's happened with me, together so long that you are just alike. You resemble each other, and you have a lot in common. And that's the way it's supposed to be. It's terrific. It's great. But that is what God is wanting with you and I. He don't want us just to come on Sunday because we have to, or it's a thing to do. We come because we love God and we want to get closer and want to learn more. And the more we learn and the closer we get, the better off we are. Because the more blessings, the more help you get. You don't have to carry the load by yourself. You know where you can turn for help. And so being zealous for God is it pays dividends.
Yeah, it does.
Pays high dividends. And it just, well, you know Flippy. I've been talking about James Fitz.
Yeah,
You know
I know
Flippy.
you, yeah.
And he and I was talking this week. We was alone. And I'm hoping he will show up today. I don't know. But anyway.
He's a good guy, I like him.
I've never give up on him, but he was asking questions. He raises his nephews. And he was asking me if he thought he was doing wrong. And I told him, and of course his wife gets after him, and other people say, well, you're selling, they cause you headaches and cost you a lot of money and everything. I said, Flippy, I said, I know it is hard a lot of times. And it's costly and all that. And I told him, I said, any time that you take out of your pocket or you take time out of your life to help somebody else, it's never wrong.
It's never.
I said, it's actually, I said, I know it can be aggravating, and he said, well, they won't even pull their own weight. I said, well, you need to enforce that and let them learn that they need to pull their own weight. But anyway, I said, you're doing a good deed. I know it. I know the problem is that you have doing this. I said, but God honors that.
Right.
And I said, the thing of it is, if you would get in church and get right with the Lord, God will help you along these lines. And he said, yeah, I know, I need to get in there. And I said, you know, another thing, I said, you know, all this stuff costs you money and everything. And I said, if you would learn to give to God in tithes and all, he will help you. And I said, there are men that are in business that tithe to God that are not even saved. And I said that they are that God has blessed them for the tithe. And anyway, I reached in my pocket and gave him a 10-cent dime. Gave him a dime. And I said, what is that, Flippy? He said, that's a dime. I said, okay. I said, that's yours. He said, no, I'm going to give it back to you. I said, that's yours. And he said, okay. I reached in my billfold and got $1 out. I said, now, Flippy, I'll give you this $1 for 10% of that, of the dollar. What is 10% of a dollar? He said, well, a dime. I said, you got a dime? He said, yeah. I said, well, give me the dime, I'll give you the $1. And he said, I know what you're getting at. I said, where'd that, I said, you got $1 for a dime, didn't you? Yeah. I said, where'd you get the dime to start with? He said, "Well, you gave it to me." I said, "Okay, all of our money belongs to God.
Yeah.
And just because we're giving 10% of it back, and we keep 90%, I said, it still all comes from God." And he said, "Yeah, I see what you're
I
saying."
think somebody making
Huh?
500 a week paying tithes can be more blessed than somebody making 800 a week
Yeah.
not paying them.
Yeah,
And their money will go farther,
Definitely.
and
Yeah.
less will happen, and it'll just work out.
yeah.
Yes.
And the thing of it is as a Christian, you don't pay tithe because you know what will happen.
Right.
Because if I pay tithe, God's going to honor
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
Well, yeah, He's going to honor that. But you pay tithe because you love God.
But if you pay tithes and you're still not, and you're missing another area, you should still
Yeah, yeah,
rob yourself of
yeah.
a blessing.
True.
And I told him, I said, and he asked me, he said, "Well, if people are not saved and they're paying tithes, how come God is honoring that?" I said, "For the simple benefit that the money that they are giving furthers the gospel." I said, "They may not be saved, but their money is being used to spread the gospel." And I said, "The Great Commission is to go out and preach the word to the world that others may be saved." And I said, even though sinners' money is given, it is still spreading God's gospel. So I said, that's why God honors it. But anyway, pray for Flippy and that he was raised a Catholic, and that he'll get in church, and he really needs help, and he's really interested and eager, and he thinks sun rises and sets in Richard back there, and so Richard has had a great influence on Flippy's life, and that is tremendous. And but in today's lesson here, we see in Numbers that the Israelites at this time had not went into the land of Canaan, and they were around the Jordan River, and there were some on the west side of the river and some on the east side of the river, but they hadn't went into Canaan and taken it over yet. But what was happening was the Israelites was it says here in the first verse, it says Israel joined himself unto Baal Peor, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. What was happening is the men of Israel was taking these Moabite ladies and having affairs with them, and at this time there was no restrictions of sexual morality at all. There was anything goes, and this was what was happening. And so God dealt with the situation through Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest. Now we know who Aaron was. He was the high priest that under Moses, and Eleazar was his son, and Eleazar followed the will of God, And back then, in this Old Testament time, it was quite, what is the word? Graphic. I mean, they, just like in this lesson here, there was a Israelite man and a Moabite woman committing adultery and everything, and Phineas just went in the tent and took a spear and killed them both. In Proverbs, it tells us, it says, because justice is not dealt out quickly, it is in the heart of man to do evil. And that's why the way it is today is back in the Old Testament, it a lot of times it was pretty graphic, pretty messy, bloody. It was bloody messy because back then God told them to kill them, and even take up the rulers, the lords. I think it probably over here in our book they didn't give me. I don't have a lesson book. Let me read this over here on page 37. While the Israelites were camped in a place called Asia Grove several weeks before the crossing of the Jordan to Canaan, many of the Israelite men became involved in idolatrous sexual relationship with Moabite and Midianite women in the worship of Baal, a Moabite god. That Baal was the name of the Baal means Lord, and that P-E-O-R means mount. It is a god on a mount. And because the tribal leaders of Israel, chiefs of the people, failed to use their authority to either prevent or stop the idolatry of the Israelite men, the Lord commanded Moses to crucify and impale on poles the tribal leaders who had not used their authority to stop this evil. In other words, you have a pole sticking up out of the ground with a sharp point on it, and you just take their body and just throw it over the top of it, and the pole goes right through their body. That would be a convincing act to stop people from doing bad, wouldn't it?
Definitely.
Or-
If they'd have kept capital punishment, there'd been less murders and a
Yeah.
lot of different things
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be in the shape they are today, would
And
we?
that's the truth.
What's that?
We wouldn't be in the shape we are today
No,
if they had
no.
punishment like that.
Yeah.
They had to pull up in the middle of the town and said, this is,
Well,
Yes.
today everything's gray. It's not black and white.
No, it's
Everything's
not.
okay.
But
That's right.
But God says, I never change, and so it's still black and white. Sin is sin to him. He don't care if it's a little sin or a big sin, it's still sin, and it's wrong. He doesn't put sin in categories like we do. But anyway, when Phinehas the priest killed an Israelite man and a Midianite woman who were openly and boldly committing sin, the Lord stopped a plague that was spreading among the Israelites that had already killed 24,000. For his righteous act, God promised Phinehas an everlasting priesthood because he was zealous for his God and made an atonement for Israel. That would be in today's world, where it seems like the whole world is going crazy toward Satan and sin, And even when I was born, and back in 1940, 76 years ago, back then, even the sinner had more respect for the law and right and wrong than a lot of Christians do today. And that's how far we've come, pulled away from God. Is even the these churches that are letting homosexuals and gays join and be leaders in the church and everything. That's I don't see any difference between that and what we got here. And we wonder sometime, God, how long? Or I get impatient. God, how long are you going to let all this go on? And but anyway, back then, at this time, they took care of the situation, and justice was dealt out real quick. And it's just like, I can't think of the guy's name now, that took the spoils from the enemy. Achan? Yeah, his name was Achan. Took the spoils from the war and took them, buried them in his tent. And then the Israelites started losing battles with the enemy, and it was because of sin in the camp. And so, not only Achan, but his wife, his children, his animals, and everything were taken out and killed and gotten rid of. In other words, they got rid of all the cancer. They didn't just leave part of it in there. And that's why Proverbs, in that verse I was telling you about, says, because justice is not swift, it is in the heart of man to do evil. But one of these days, justice will be swift, and it will be dealt out. It's only by God's mercy and God's grace that we have come this far.
Yes.
And you've heard it, I've heard it too, that if a lot of people have already said that if God don't do something, he's going to have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah.
I've been hearing that for over 30 years.
Yeah, I know. And but along that line, though, I was reading in Job. Along that line, we don't understand why God, like today, why God dealt with that so strongly back then, but he's not doing it today. We don't understand. But you read the book of Job, and it tells in there basically what God does or does not do is none of our business,
That's true.
because he's God.
But it's storing up wrath
Yeah,
for the day to come.
yeah. In other words, we're not to question God's motives, but we are to follow his will and go after that. And I think I forget the guy's name in Job, but he was telling Job that Job shouldn't even be questioning anything that happened to him. And I hadn't thought of it that along that way, because I think all of us question sometimes, God, why in the world are you letting this happen? But we gotta realize that God knows the past, the present, and the future, and He is not a God that is slack concerning His promises. That it's going to happen, and that His promises has happened. We can look at the Bible and see a lot of prophecies that came true. But and we gotta realize time was made for man and not for God, because God has no time limits. Excuse me. And so just like in the New Testament, those apostles and all thought the end of time would come in their lifetime, but God had other plans, and we know it's been over 2,000 years, and the book of Acts is still going on. It's not stopped. People are still getting saved, and also the only time it's going to stop is when God comes back for His church.
You know, for some reason, ever since I've been a 10, 11-year-old kid, I always thought we was 3 or 4 years away from tribulation. I just thought that way. I just always thought we were just right there.
Yeah.
Even before I got saved, I just thought we was just right, because you could see how wicked everything was and how messed up it was.
Well, it's just like in today's world, you don't see how anything could get any worse. But it seems to be getting worse all the time. But God dealt with them swiftly, and we're going to be running out of time here pretty soon. But the Lord is, what God says is going to happen, we can bank on it, it's going to happen. Whether we know how it's going to happen, or whether we know not how it's going to happen, we can bank on it that it's going to happen. And because God sees the whole picture of the puzzle, and we can only see one piece of the puzzle at a time. But God knows, like I said, the past, the present, and the future. And everything, even though evil things are going on, and things are not like we want them to be, we can still rest assured that God is still in control of the situation, the whole situation. And we can rest assured, and God will, my main goal is to keep myself clean and keep myself ready. And I may not save the whole world. It's just like this little boy was walking along the seashore with some friends, and you might have heard this story before, and a lot of starfish was washed ashore, and they were dying, and there was just hundreds of them, and this little boy started picking them up and throwing them back in the water, and his friends told him, said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm saving that starfish's life, putting it back in the water." And they said, "Well, look at all these, there's hundreds of them." He said, "You can't save all of them." He said, "No, I can't." But he said, "I can make a difference in the ones I'm throwing back in. I can save them."
Amen.
And that's the same way with us. You know, we see a world out here full of sin and all this going on that we disagree with and don't like, and wonder why God don't deal with it. But if you and I can make a difference in one person's life, you know, it's at least that much.
That's right.
And by the life we live, and not backing down, and the like what we was talking about Flippy and these other people that Kenny and I are working with there at CPS. Our influence is having an impact on them by just us
Witness.
living our life.